As soon as he said he would take responsibility, I decided to give birth. My best friend, who had a puppy love with her first love, showed off her affection in the moments with her pregnant belly. At the age of 18, when she was supposed to prepare for the college entrance examination, she was going to drop out of school to have a baby. I tried my best to talk some sense into my best friend and analyzed the advantages and disadvantages for her first love. Unexpectedly, the matter got to the ears of her first love's parents. My best friend was forced to have an abortion, transfer to another school, and prepare for the exam. Her first love has hated me for the rest of his life since then. Later, they tricked me to the rooftop of an abandoned building and made me pay tribute to their dead crystallization of love. When I opened my eyes again, there was still that moment's boast. Congratulations. The familiar voice was like an invisible hand, pulling me out of the fear that I was still experiencing a sense of weightlessness just a second ago. Before I could react, Echo had already posted the photo on Moments. In the photo, Echo held her pregnant belly, and the smile in her eyes couldn't be hidden. My eyes focused on the caption of that moment's post, and my heart was pounding wildly like a drum. As soon as he said he would take responsibility, I decided to give birth. Celine. Orion said he would take responsibility. He has even thought of the baby's name. Echo excitedly grabbed my hand, and the corners of her mouth turned up slightly, unable to be suppressed. Memories came crashing into my mind like waves. I looked at the familiar short-sleeved shirt on Echo and remained silent. That was the birthday gift I gave to Orion. I saved up my pocket money for half a semester and queued up for a long time to buy him a limited edition branded short t-shirt. The loose t-shirt covered Echo's slightly protruding pregnant belly. Orion's figure, running towards us from the campus, got closer and closer. I lowered my eyes and pushed away the hand that Echo was holding mine. Congratulations. But I still have to go home to review, so I won't bother you two for now. When Orion walked up to Echo, I passed by him. His gaze only stayed on my face for a moment, and then he put his arm around Echo's shoulder. Have you completed all the procedures for dropping out of school? Did the baby give you trouble today? Don't worry. I will definitely treat you well. I won't let her stop us. I have a way to prevent her from telling my parents. I knew that the her Orion mentioned was me. I tugged at the corner of my mouth's self-deprecating lie, and my steps quickened. Echo's cocartous voice came from behind. Orion. What are you talking about? Just now Celine was congratulating us. Yes, having tosobla and sa. Congratulations to you. Sincerely congratulations. Orion and I grew up in the same courtyard. Whenever someone asked since we were little, Orion would look at me tenderly and say that we were each other's first love. I thought we would be like the plot in a novel, confessing after graduation and falling in love in university, being the childhood sweethearts that everyone envied. But reality never plays out as expected. Later, my first love fell in love with my best friend. In order not to make my best friend jealous, he completely ignored all our past together and distanced himself from me by using the term neighbor. Echo is my best friend, 1 year older than both Orion and me. From the first year to the third year of senior high school, Echo and I were always desk mates. For 3 years, we were almost inseparable. And it was because of me that she met Orion. We studied liberal arts, while Orion studied science. And we were not in the same class. Orion always came to our class to find me, either to give me snacks or to wait for me after school. After a while, Echo and Orion naturally got to know each other. The deterioration of the relationship among the three of us happened on Orion's 18th birthday. Orion specially asked his parents to book a private room at a restaurant and invited many classmates. Echo and I went to celebrate Orion's birthday together. After the meal, Echo suddenly confessed her love to Orion. At the age of 18, being young and impulsive, Orion blushed and looked at me and then at Echo. He accepted Echo's gift and also agreed to her pursuit. After that day, Orion deliberately kept a distance from me, and Echo avoided me for many days in a row. They started an underground relationship on campus, low-key yet passionate. Later, I took the initiative to suggest reconciling the relationship, as long as it doesn't affect our studies. I wish you all the best. At that time, I was just thinking that maybe we could always be friends this way. But I was wrong. The news of Echo's pregnancy spread throughout the school. Everyone was speculating whose child it was. Or rather, whether it was Orion's. In my previous life, Echo's Moments post was forced to be deleted by me as soon as it was sent out. There was only 1 month left before the college entrance examination when Echo suddenly told me that she was going to drop out of school to have a baby. Echo's parents died in a car accident when she was very young. And she was raised by her elderly grandmother. She had always had excellent academic performance. If she performed normally in the college entrance examination, she could aim for a very good university in the country. So when she told me her decision in person, my first reaction was that it was not allowed. I tried my best to talk to her, telling her that her future was clearly bright. Orion had a dark face all day long. And there was a hint of disgust in his eyes when he looked at me. Which I could understand. But I didn't want them to regret it. I analyzed the advantages and disadvantages for Orion from various aspects, hoping that he would listen. While I was still waiting for Echo to change her mind, the news of Echo's pregnancy reached Orion's parents' ears. Orion found me immediately. In the more than 18 years I had known him, it was the first time I heard him curse me so viciously. "Celine, you're so disgusting. People like you had better not be able to have children for the rest of your life." I stared at Orion in amazement. And at Echo, who was crying pitifully behind Orion. I knew that I was about to part ways with them. Later, Orion's parents took Echo to the hospital for an abortion, gave her a large sum of money, and helped her transfer to another school. Orion stopped talking to me from that day on. And we became strangers. After the college entrance examination, they went to the schools they wanted to go to, and had no contact with me anymore. It was not until many years after graduation, on the day I shared the good news of my pregnancy in Moments, before I could feel the pain of being lost in the memories, I was called to the head teacher's office. "Celine, do you know about Echo's situation?" The head teacher pushed up the reading glasses on his nose. And his gaze was sharp. I shook my head. "I don't know. I didn't persuade Echo like I did in my previous life. But that Moments post was still deleted by Echo later. As for why it was deleted, it was probably because she was afraid that Orion would be affected. On the day Echo dropped out of school, many classmates saw Orion and Echo walking hand in hand. Even if I didn't say anything, it would sooner or later reach the teacher's ears. Once the teacher knew, the parents would naturally know. But in my previous life, Orion and Echo seemed to deliberately not understand this truth. They had to blame this matter on me and say that I was a despicable informer. "Then do you know about the relationship between Echo and Orion from class 1? You have always been quite close." The head teacher's gaze was full of scrutiny, and his tone was filled with an undeniable certainty. I continued to shake my head. "Teacher, I've been busy with my studies recently. The college entrance examination is coming soon. And I don't have time to pay attention to things that have nothing to do with my studies." My tone was firm. The head teacher looked at me for a long time and then waved his hand to let me leave. As soon as I walked out of the office, I saw Orion waiting at the door of the office. His eyebrows furrowed imperceptibly, and his voice drifted into my ears faintly. "Celine, you didn't say anything stupid, did you?" I pursed my lips and replied to him, "No. I don't know anything." The news of Echo's pregnancy didn't reach Orion's parents' ears like it did in my previous life. Orion even studied harder than usual, which also put the teacher at ease. The countdown bell for the college entrance examination rang in our ears day by day. And I also entered a state of intense preparation for the exam. And Echo started a euphemistic mode of taking care of her pregnancy in Moments. In every photo she posted, I could spot some traces of Orion. She would also send me messages occasionally. "Celine, I'm really happy. I believe in Orion. He will definitely give me and the baby a bright future. Thank you for supporting me." When I saw these words, my heart ached. It's your own life. And you should make your own decisions. It has nothing to do with me. After replying to Echo, I never opened the chat window with her again. In my previous life, I naively and stupidly thought that I had done a very right thing. I even never realized a truth that no one should interfere in other people's lives. So Echo and Orion hated me for a lifetime. Even though they were admitted to their ideal schools and rekindled their love on the university campus, they still hated me. So when I shared the good news of my pregnancy in moments, Echo contacted me immediately. She said, "Celine. Congratulations. Long time no see. Let's get together." At that time, Echo and Orion had achieved success in their careers. And they were also at the stage of discussing marriage. I thought that those unpleasant past events were over. And I even wondered how to celebrate for them. But I didn't expect that they took me to the rooftop of an abandoned building and made me pay tribute to their dead crystallization of love. "Celine. Because of your, no. Echo and I lost our child. You don't know. Echo can never get pregnant again in her life. So, it's not a bad deal to use your child to pay for it." I woke up with a start from my afternoon nap. I was trembling all over. It was as if my eyes were covered with a blood mist. I felt as if I had fallen from a tall building and smashed into a large pool of blood. My new desk mate was scared by my pale face. And she dragged me towards the infirmary. "Celine. Are you okay? The college entrance examination is coming soon. You must take care of your health." My thoughts were finally pulled back. And I shrank my hands back. "I'm okay. I just had a nightmare." After the lunch break ended, Orion ran to the door of our classroom to find me. His face didn't look very good. When he saw me walking slowly to the door, he grabbed my arm. "Celine. What did you say to my parents?" I looked at him in surprise. My face full of confusion. Probably because my expression was too genuine. Orion let go of my arm. "I hope it wasn't you who said it. Otherwise, I will definitely not let you off." The expression on Orion's face was exactly the same as the one when he said he would make me pay with my child in my previous life. It was as if a string in my mind suddenly broke. I hid my trembling hands behind my back and took a step back, distancing myself from him. "Orion. I don't know why you think I would tell your parents those things. But I can tell you very responsibly now. We are just ordinary classmates. And your business has nothing to do with me. I hope you won't come to find me again." "Thank you." After saying that, I walked quickly back to the classroom. Even when I sat in my seat, my hands were still shaking uncontrollably. Perhaps Orion is the same as me. He has also come back. After that day, Orion's parents almost came to pick him up from school every day. During dinner that night, I casually mentioned this matter. And my parents exchanged a guilty look. "What's wrong?" I looked at them with some confusion. But I already had a rough idea in my heart. According to my parents, it seemed that they had heard some rumors about Orion and Echo in the parents' group. Although no names were mentioned, the parents would more or less relate the rumors to themselves. "Orion is a kid we've watched grow up since he was little. He definitely wouldn't do those despicable things. Orion did quite well in the mock exam a few days ago. Your Uncle Zoo and Orion's parents, are just overthinking it. It's okay. Things will be fine after the college entrance examination." I nodded and changed the subject. After dinner, when I returned to my room, Echo called again. These days, whenever Echo couldn't get in touch with Orion, she would call me. "Celine, Orion hasn't come to see me for a week already. Are you with him? Can you ask him to answer the phone?" I looked at the exercise book in front of me, wishing I could quickly cram all the knowledge into my brain. In order to no longer be harassed by Echo, I decided to make things clear to her. "Echo. Orion hasn't gone home with me after school for a long time. You know that, don't you? If you really can't find him, and you can call the police. The college entrance examination is next week. I hope you won't disturb me anymore." In my previous life, Echo knew that I liked Orion. But she still deliberately confessed to him on Orion's birthday. And after that day, she deliberately said some inexplicable things to me. She said that she had been relying on her grandmother since she was a child and had never met someone as good as Orion. She said that I was so excellent and would definitely find someone even more excellent in the future. Later, I did find someone very excellent. But just as my marriage with him was beginning, the lives of my child and I were ended by her and Orion. Echo's voice stopped abruptly. And what came to my ears next was her low sobbing. But I no longer wanted to pretend with her. After the college entrance examination ended, Orion's parents finally lifted his ban. Echo's WeChat moments also returned to its previous update frequency. This time, Orion accompanied her to show off their affection in various ways openly in the moments. When I saw Orion's words, the greatest sense of accomplishment in my life is that everything is going in the direction I want. My heart finally settled down. Perhaps in my previous life, I was really wrong. I thought that my intersection with the two of them had ended here. When the college entrance examination results came out, there was almost no difference between my total score and Orion's. Orion is a top student. When he takes the same test paper twice, his performance is extremely stable. And after I was reborn, I studied late into the night every day. And I barely reached the same level as him. Fortunately, Haddington fell way, due to the differences between liberal arts and science. And the fact that Orion and I have always had different target universities. I didn't take it too hard. But I didn't expect that reality would play another joke on me. And this joke was related to Orion. In my previous life, Orion and Echo agreed to apply to universities in Beijing, while I chose Shanghai, which was close to home. I thought Orion would be the same as before, but this time he actually chose Shanghai as well. And he was in the same university as me. On the day of enrollment, my parents accompanied me. Orion said that the first step at university was to be independent. So he specifically didn't let his parents follow. As soon as he finished registering, he squeezed into the crowd and walked against the flow. I lowered my eyes and dragged my suitcase towards the dormitory building. In fact, when I just arrived at the school gate, I saw Echo. With a pregnant belly of about 5 or 6 months. She was extremely eye-catching in the crowd. Her figure was slightly out of shape, and her eyes were full of eagerness and anticipation for Orion. After arranging the dormitory with my parents, I sent them to the car back home at the school gate. When I was about to turn around, I saw Echo again. She was so excited that she wanted to jump up and waved at me desperately. Celine. Celine. It's me, Helen Fosselbland fashion. Echo. It turned out that Orion had brought Echo and her grandmother to Shanghai. He said that he had rented a house for them near the school, making it convenient for Orion to take care of them. When Echo said these things, there was a smile in her eyes and on her brows. It seemed that for her, all of this was the best arrangement. But in my previous life, because Orion's parents looked down on her, she worked hard and got into a 985 university in Beijing, making everyone look at her with new eyes. But now, Celine, congratulations. I really didn't expect that you could get into the same university as Orion. As she spoke, she stroked her round belly. It wasn't until the phone on the table vibrated that she stopped talking. I held the coffee in front of me to my mouth, and hardly said a word from beginning to end. On the other end of the phone, I seemed to hear Orion's anxious voice. After a while, before Echo hung up the phone, Orion rushed into the coffee shop in a hurry. Echo, Echo. You scared me to death. I told you to wait for me at the school gate. Why did you come here? Orion's tone was not one of accusation but of concern. It was the kind of cherishing and caring that came from having lost and then regained something. Because I had changed my coat when I came out and was just facing away from Orion at the moment. He didn't seem to recognize who I was. I just met Celine. So I came to the coffee shop to sit with her. Do you want coffee? I'll buy it for you. With that, Echo walked towards the front desk. Orion didn't stop her but sat down opposite me as if it were natural. Celine let out a well sigh. You're back too, aren't you? I lowered my eyes and tried my best to control the urge to splash the coffee in Orion's face. Celine, you shouldn't contact us anymore in the future. I won't allow you to hurt Echo and our child anymore. I believe you don't want the things from the previous life to happen again either. When Echo came back with the coffee, I splashed all the coffee in my hand on Orion's face. Hatred and anger almost consumed my reason. Echo let out a scream of fright, attracting the attention of many students in the university town. Orion sneered, pulled out a tissue from the table to wipe his face, and shouted at me as I was about to push the door out, Celine. Just you wait. I knew what Orion meant. He wanted me to know that the life I thought he couldn't control was all part of his plan. I curved my lips. Perhaps he was right. After that day, I never met Echo again. I only met Orion at the activities organized by the student union. Orion has good physical appearance conditions. As soon as he entered the university, he attracted the attention of many girls and quickly became a popular figure among the freshmen. Even several girls in our dormitory would ask me about Orion's past. Celine, do you know Orion from the Department of Physics? I heard that you went to the same high school. I was stunned for a moment while memorizing words and shook my head. I'm not familiar with him. Why do you ask? I was waiting for my roommate's explanation when I heard a noisy commotion downstairs in the dormitory. Let's go. Go to the balcony. I heard that the rich and beautiful girl from our department is going to confess to Orion today. She must have started by now. I was dragged by my roommate all the way and stumbled to the balcony of the dormitory. Downstairs, there were two people standing in the heart-shaped candles. One was the beauty of our department. The other was Orion. Next to our dormitory building was the dormitory building for male students of the Department of Physics. Our dormitory was just on the second floor, almost occupying the best viewing angle. To watch the gossip, my roommate even took out the telescope she usually used to watch concerts. Not allowing herself to miss any expression of the male and female protagonists. As she watched, she explained to me. I heard that Orion was only invited down after the beauty of our department called him more than a dozen times. When Orion came down, the boys and girls watching let out a scream and shouts of excitement. Celine, what do you think Stella sees in Orion? I think Orion is just averagely handsome. Well, he does seem a bit handsome. I glanced at my roommate and remained silent for a moment. At this moment, I was actually a bit curious about how Orion would reject the beauty of the department. During the student union activities before, many girls asked Orion questions like whether he had a girlfriend. He neither admitted the existence of Echo or gave a positive answer to the girls' questions. His ambiguous attitude made it easy for people to misunderstand. Obviously, having fulfilled Wyantsai, Stella was one of those who misunderstood. The candles were swaying in the wind, and the petals of the roses in Stella's arms had also fallen all over the ground. Damn it. They're hugging. They're hugging. Damn it. He's leading. Damn it. It seems that Stella has been rejected. My roommate clicked her tongue repeatedly. Her steps were faster than her mouth. As soon as she finished speaking, she rushed out of the dormitory, saying, I'll go and find out why. After watching Orion leave the crowd, I also returned to my seat. Orion has always been very serious about Echo. I don't know who uploaded the video of that night to the internet. Some friends stood up for Stella and posted all the chats between Orion and Stella. Page after page of conversations. From morning to night. From good morning to good night. From any angle, it could be seen that there was an ambiguous relationship between the two. Although Orion was not the initiative taker, he hardly refused. Orion not only accepted all kinds of food and gifts from Stella but also watched many movies alone with Stella. He's such a scumbag. He's clearly just trying to cheat the money of our rich and beautiful girl from the department. To be honest, I even suspect that he must have a girlfriend. That his girlfriend's conditions are not as good as the beauty of the department, so he's deliberately stringing her along. My roommate was complaining while scrolling through the posts. I denied my roommate's speculation in my heart. But I really couldn't figure out why. Orion's reputation in school took a sharp turn for the worse. After that, Orion almost rarely appeared in school and even skipped quite a few classes. Until Echo called me again. Celine, are you free? I want to meet you. I'm right outside your dormitory area now. Celine, please. The autumn in Shanghai wasn't cold, but the wind was a bit biting. Thinking of her with a pregnant belly of more than 8 months, I felt an inexplicable chill. Echo, didn't Orion tell you? He said that we shouldn't contact each other anymore in the future. If you have anything, call Orion. Just as I was about to hang up the phone, Echo started crying again. Celine, Orion doesn't want me anymore. He doesn't want me anymore. I still didn't go out to meet Echo. Instead, I walked to the balcony of the dormitory and listened to Echo's plaintive recounting on the phone about what had recently transpired between her and Orion. It turned out that on the night when Stella confessed to Orion, She had swiped the video on the internet. She called Orion and said that she had been agitated and asked Orion to go back no matter what. When Orion went back, he saw Echo sitting on the chair, crying and wiping her tears. And the phone on the table was playing the video of Stella confessing to him. You know what, Celine? Orion is feeling guilty. He's actually feeling guilty. Under the influence of progesterone. Echo had no mood to listen to Orion's explanation at all. She had a huge fight with Orion and even forced him to give her his phone so she could check his chat records. Orion refused. And the two of them got into an angle. Seeing this, Echo's grandmother had a sudden heart attack and was rushed to the hospital that night. Celine, do you know that girl in the video? Is Orion attracted to her? How could Orion treat me like this? I'm carrying his child. And he can't treat me like this. Echo casually mentioned the fact that her grandmother was in the hospital in just a few words. And her mind was filled with thoughts about Orion. Her emotions became more and more agitated as she spoke, and later she repeated the same few sentences over and over again. I pressed my eyebrows and said in a solemn voice, Echo, you should go back. It's already 11 o'clock. And there's a curfew in the dormitory building. Even if you stay at the door all night, Orion won't be able to get out. However, I heard that Orion hadn't been back to the dormitory for a long time. But Echo didn't seem to know that. When Orion came to me on his own initiative, I was preparing for the final exams in the library. He looked extremely haggard. His height of over 1.8 meters seemed to be hunched over, making him look several inches shorter. Celine, I have something to ask you. Orion's voice wasn't very loud, but his hoarse voice stood out especially in the quiet library. Many people cast reproachful glances in our direction. Helplessly, I followed him outside the library. The warm winter sun shone on my body, making me squint my eyes comfortably. Celine, could you lend me some money? Orion said this a bit nervously, which was completely different from his haughty appearance last time. I looked at him in surprise and didn't know what to say for a moment. Some time ago, Echo's grandmother was hospitalized. Echo is going to give birth in a few days. The doctor said the fetal position is not right, and it's better to have a cesarean section if possible. Could you lend me some money? I'll be able to pay you back next month. Orion lowered his head, his hands hanging by his sides, and his fingertips curled and uncurled. Some time ago, my roommate and I went to a mall near the university town to have hot pot, and Orion was working as a waiter in that hot pot restaurant. I ran into Orion in his work uniform when I was going to the restroom. We tacitly pretended that neither of us saw the other. At that time, he had been absent from class for a long time. Later, when we were having a meal, I pretended to chat casually with the waiter at our table. That waiter thought we also wanted to do part-time jobs, and said with a smile that there were quite a few college students doing part-time jobs in their store recently. There was a boy who directly chose a full-time job with accommodation included because he thought the part-time job's salary was too low. He could earn about 8 or 9,000 on a month including bonuses. As he spoke, he also lamented. He doesn't want to study at a good university, but comes out to serve dishes instead. Orion seemed a bit impatient, and asked me again. Celine, is that okay? I met his gaze and said straightforwardly. Where's your money? Orion had used all his money to pay back Stella. According to my roommate, the things Stella bought for Orion in total added up to tens of thousands of yuan. Stella took it easy and just regarded it as having swallowed a fly. But Stella's friends couldn't stand it. They threatened to report the matter to the teacher and used this as a leverage to force Orion to pay back the money. At first, I just chatted with her casually. I didn't expect the gift she gave me to be so valuable. I thought everyone else also had them. I really didn't expect her to confess her love to me. Celine, I've always loved Echo. You know that. I shook my head and took a step back to distance myself from him. No, it's not at all like what Orion said. Stella is a well-known rich and beautiful school belle in our department, who dares to love and hate. If Orion hadn't given her a chance, Stella wouldn't have been so brave to confess her love on her own initiative. And as for those gifts, if Orion hadn't hinted at it, why would Stella give them? After Stella gave the gifts, why did Orion resell them brand new immediately? These were all things that my roommate uncovered bit by bit following the clues. And it also made me clearly see Orion's hypocritical mask. He strung Stella along just to use her as his cash machine. He thought that after going to university, he could be as successful as he was in his previous life. But he was wrong. He could be the same as in his previous life, but Echo couldn't. Echo's thoughts remained in high school, in the time when they loved each other most passionately. Sooner or later, Echo would be unable to understand Orion's plans for life and his expectations for the future. Just like every time there was a student union activity, Echo would make a video call to check up on him. Once or twice, Orion thought it was a spice in their love. But what about when it happened more often? After hanging up the video call, Orion explained to everyone that Echo was his elder sister at home. And now, awasai, Orion had to face a large amount of money to be spent. The exams that he thought he could easily pass would end up with him failing because of his continuous absence from class. And the money he earned from skipping class had to be used to pay back Stella on one hand and to cover the living expenses of Echo and her grandmother on the other hand. Now he also had to bear the medical expenses for Echo's grandmother and the money for Echo to give birth to and raise the child. You see how naive he is. If you weren't naive, how could Orion have hated me for a lifetime in his previous life? He even risked his and Echo's lives and pushed me off a tall building. Orion probably really had no other way out before he came to me. Perhaps he never thought about how his life, which he had clearly planned, became such a mess. But these weren't unpredictable. From the moment he decided to let Echo give birth to this child, one responsibility after another was added to his shoulders. I met Orion's inquiring gaze and shook my head. I've almost used up my living expenses. I'll go home after the exams. And I won't need the money. As I said this, I rummaged through my pocket. I still have 50 yuan here. Do you want it? I would only help them if I were crazy. Orion was so angry at my words that he took several steps back, almost furious. Celine, is it necessary? If you don't want to lend me money, just say so. Do you have to humiliate me like this? I smiled. Yes, having so won't say. It's necessary. Very necessary. Fine if you don't want it. After saying that, I turned around and walked back into the library. Later, I don't know where Orion got the money from, but I know that Echo gave birth. In the moment's boast she made, 2 big hands were holding a small foot. With the caption, "A family of 3. Grateful." There was nothing in Orion's moments. Or maybe he blocked me. When the final exam results came out, I had already spent a few pleasant days of winter vacation at home. When Orion's parents came to find me, I was just about to go out to attend a high school classmate gathering. Celine, when did you start your vacation? I asked Orion. And he said there are still 10 days before the vacation. My expression froze on my face. And I answered truthfully, Uncle and Aunt, we've already been on vacation for a week. Orion was picked up by his parents. Also brought back was Orion and Echo's child. In the early morning, the baby's crying resounded throughout the corridor, causing many neighbors to poke their heads out and look. My parents sat in the living room chattering. What kind of thing is this? He actually had a child while in university. I heard it was born by that girl surnamed Kin. Isn't that girl Celine's former desk mate? I hope she doesn't let our Celine astray. That guy Orion really surprised us. Yesterday, Orion's father asked us to lend him 200 yuan. I wonder if it has something to do with this matter. When I opened the bedroom door with my sleepy eyes, I just happened to hear their conversation. It turned out that Orion had borrowed a loan from an online lending platform. During that time, many people came to our school to promote online lending. Every day when I returned to the dormitory, there were advertisements for online lending stuffed under the door. For Orion, who was in a desperate situation, perhaps this was the quickest way to get money. When they saw me come out, my parents stopped talking. Probably because our families led door to door. When I was having breakfast at the dining table, the sounds of Orion arguing with his parents clearly reached my ears. After Orion's parent asked me about the vacation time that day, they had been trying to contact Orion. But Orion didn't answer their calls at all. They originally planned to go to the school to look for Orion. As soon as they arrived in Shanghai, they received a call from Orion's counselor. The counselor told them that Orion had been absent from almost every final exam, and the school was planning to expel him. After coming out of the counselor's office, Orion's parents then received a debt collection call. That's how the fact that Orion had borrowed a loan from an online lending platform was exposed. Orion's parents followed the clues and found Echo's residence. They beat Echo and took the child away. After bringing the child back, Orion's parents immediately did a paternity test. After confirming that it was Orion's child, Orion's parents made a decision on the spot: keep the child and get rid of the mother. I couldn't accept a girl who hadn't even graduated from high school as their daughter-in-law and the mother of their grandson. Orion sued Echo on one hand and argued with his parents on the other. At least until now. He hasn't given up on Echo. But how long can the sincerity of a young man last? From morning till night. Almost every hour. The baby's crying could be heard coming from Orion's house. Especially at night. The commotion didn't stop, and many people in the homeowners group were asking about it. When Echo came to the door, her emotions were almost on the verge of collapse. She was extremely bloated, and her face was as pale as paper. She should have been confined to her bed after giving birth. But at this moment, she was pounding violently on Orion's door. Give me back my child. Orion. Give me back my child. Perhaps it was the connection between mother and child. The baby, Kiwi, who had just stopped crying, started crying again. Echo's knocking on the door became louder. When Orion hurriedly opened the door, Echo stumbled and fell into the room. When I opened the door, I just happened to see this scene. Orion was holding the baby in a flurry, and Orion's parents were staring coldly at Echo, who was sitting on the floor. The baby in the swaddling clothes almost cried itself hoarse. The whole face was flushed red, an abnormal kind of red. My heart suddenly tightened, and my stomach twitched one after another. The image of me falling from a high place in my previous life flashed through my mind. There was a pool of blood under me, and my child could have been born safely in this world. The door in front of me closed with a bang, cutting off Echo's voice inside. I didn't even have time to ask her if her grandmother's illness had gotten better. When I had a very good relationship with Echo in the past, I often went to visit her grandmother. Although the grandmother was old, she was still in fairly good health. Every time I went, she would smile and stuff candies into my arms, saying that she was looking forward to the day when Echo and I would go to university together. I don't know what method Echo used to force her grandmother to agree to her dropping out of school to have a baby, but I know that the grandmother's wish was not fulfilled. The filial and kind Echo who was raised by the grandmother since childhood was also gone. When I retrieved the package from the courier station, there was an additional ambulance downstairs in my building. When the stretcher was carried out from the unit door, I glanced at the woman on it. I didn't expect it to be Echo. She was lying there covered in blood, almost lifeless. Orion followed behind with a deathly pale face. And the baby who was always in his arms was also held by the doctor. Hurry up. The patient has lost too much blood. We need to stop the bleeding immediately. Call the children's hospital right away. The baby's body temperature is extremely abnormal, and there is already cyanosis around the mouth. As soon as Orion got into the ambulance, the door was forcefully closed by the medical staff. When the vehicle roared past me, it only left behind a faint smell of exhaust fumes, as if it had never been there. I took a deep breath and walked upstairs. The door of Orion's house was wide open. Looking in from the outside, the entire living room was in a mess. From the living room extending to the front door, there was bright red blood everywhere, which was really shocking. Orion's parents were sitting on the sofa, motionless. I stood there in amazement, my body trembling slightly uncontrollably. It was not until the voice of the police came from downstairs that I regained my consciousness and rushed into the house in a hurry. Seeing me come back, my parents let out a sigh of relief. They pushed me into the room and repeatedly told me not to come out. Later, I learned that Echo had suffered from postpartum depression, coupled with the stimulation of having her child snatched away by Orion's parents. She was in a state of being on the verge of going crazy. However, Echo didn't hurt Orion from beginning to end, let alone Orion's parents. She chose to hurt herself. She threatened with her own life, asking Orion to take the child and leave with her. She thought they could live the good life that Orion had described. But she didn't think that their life couldn't be sustained by just the two of them at all. Echo couldn't wait for Orion to achieve success and fame. And Orion couldn't do without the help of his parents. When Orion and Echo were struggling, he snatched the fruit knife from Echo's hand. But in the end, because of Orion's words, "Can you stop making a scene?" Echo had a mental breakdown again. Echo almost used all her strength to hold Orion's hand and stab the knife straight into her own chest. Echo was ultimately not saved. In the ambulance, she said her last words to Orion intermittently, which made Orion wake up as if from a dream. She said, "Orion, I regret it." The loose dessert covered Echo's slightly protruding pregnant belly, and the figure of Orion running from the campus approached from a distance. "With me." Echo and Orion's child also suffered from convulsions due to continuous high fever and died after ineffective rescue. When Echo's grandmother received the news from the police, she had a recurrence of heart disease on the spot and died of cardiac arrest. A grand drama of being reborn and pursuing love came to an end completely. Along with the end, there were also the lives of 3 living people. Orion was finally sentenced to 3 years in prison for manslaughter by negligence. On the day he was released from prison, he contacted me. He invited me to the rooftop of the same abandoned and building as in the previous life. I didn't go. It was not until the term "a man committed suicide by jumping off an abandoned and building" appeared in the news that I noticed it. It turned out that on that day, Orion committed suicide by jumping off the building. Seeing that I was a bit in a daze, the person beside me tugged at my hand. "What did you see?" I shook my head, put my hand into the crook of that person's arm, and held his arm. "Nothing. Would you like to come to my home during the winter vacation? I'll take you to meet my parents." I still met that very excellent person. My boyfriend. My husband. And the father of my future child.